The ocean didn't roar when it happened. It didn't even splash. Instead, the Pacific simply stuttered. It was a frame rate drop in reality. For a fraction of a second, the waves near the Farallon Islands froze, caught in a jagged, motionless loop, before snapping forward with a violent, unnatural jerk. Then the error appeared. It rose from the depths not as flesh and bone, but as a colossal, unrendered limb. It was a tentacle miles long, yet it lacked the texture of skin or the sheen of wet muscle. It was a void, a smear of deep, matte black that seemed to swallow the very light around it. It looked like a mistake, a massive, jagged tear in the world's geometry, an artifact left behind by a poorly rendered simulation. In the control rooms of the Global Climate Array, the alarms didn't scream, they errored. The AI, a hyper-intelligent network known as AETHER, began to hemorrhage data. On the monitors, the massive object was flagged as null value. Sensors recorded no mass, no temperature, no biological signature. There was only a localized collapse of physics. AETHER's logic gates cycled frantically, trying to categorize a nightmare that didn't exist in its database. To the machine, the Kraken wasn't a monster, it was a corruption in the code. By the second day, the world had seen the footage. It was impossible to ignore. High-definition satellite feeds and shaky smartphone videos from terrified fishermen all showed the same thing. A colossal, pixelated limb scraping against the underside of the clouds, leaving a trail of static in the sky. The human reaction was a chaotic cocktail of dread and the absurd. On social media, the hashtag, the glitch, trended alongside memes of a giant, low-resolution squid wearing a party hat. There was a grim, hysterical humor to it. How do you mourn a world that is clearly breaking? People posted videos of themselves toasting bread while the horizon flickered, captioned with, "At least the Wi-Fi is still working." But the humor couldn't mask the encroaching horror. The environment was beginning to fray at the edges. Wherever the tentacle moved, the ocean followed suit. The water didn't just displace, it vanished. Great patches of the Pacific were being replaced by void space flat, featureless plains of nothingness that looked like a texture error in a video game. Marine life was being caught in the crossfire. Whales were seen swimming into these dead zones, only to vanish instantly, leaving behind nothing but a flickering trail of digital artifacts. The economy collapsed within a week. Global shipping halted as the unrendered zones expanded, making the sea impassable. You couldn't navigate a vessel through a patch of ocean that had no depth, no buoyancy, and no physics. The insurance industry evaporated overnight. How do you insure a cargo ship against the localized deletion of reality? In the coastal cities, the atmosphere grew heavy with the sense of an impending shutdown. The sky itself began to exhibit strange behaviors. During sunset, the colors wouldn't blend. They would snap between neon pink and a bruised digital green, as if the atmosphere's color palette were being corrupted. Elias, a former systems architect turned coastal observer, sat on a pier in Monterey, watching the horizon. He wasn't looking for a beast. He was looking for the flicker. He held a handheld scanner, a device meant to detect seismic shifts, but now he used it to monitor the stability of reality itself. The scanner chirped. A jagged line of red light spiked across the screen. "It's getting closer," he whispered to the empty air. Behind him, a group of tourists were taking selfies, their faces illuminated by the eerie, flickering light of the dying afternoon. They were laughing, oblivious to the fact that the ground beneath their feet was losing its collision detection. Then a low, rhythmic thrumming began to vibrate through the pier. It wasn't a sound you heard with your ears. It was a sound you felt in your teeth. It was the sound of a system struggling to process a massive, unhandled exception. Then the sky tore. A massive dark shape, far larger than the first tentacle, began to manifest above the bay. It didn't descend from the clouds, it simply appeared. A colossal, jagged limb of darkness, flickering in and out of existence. As it moved, the sound of tearing fabric echoed across the water, a deafening, screeching static that drowned out the waves. The tourists stopped laughing. The cameras dropped. The sea began to lose its shape, the waves turning into sharp, polygonal edges. Elias watched as a piece of the pier simply ceased. There was no debris, no splash. One moment, the wood was there, weathered and salt-stained. The next, there was only a black, empty space where the structure had been. The edge of the pier was no longer a broken plank, but a clean, straight line of nothingness. The Kraken wasn't attacking. It wasn't hunting. It was simply an overflow error, a piece of data too large for the universe to contain, overwriting everything in its path. As the darkness descended, Elias looked up one last time. The stars were beginning to flicker, blinking out one by one, replaced by the cold, silent black of a screen being turned off. He closed his eyes, waiting for the final inevitable crash.